Some episodes may contain graphic content or sensitive topics, while all episodes will consistently feature offensive language and absurd speculations from two opinionated women on a spiritual journey just trying to figure shit out. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, I'm Sharon.
And I'm Heather.
Welcome to Hex Haven.
You're joining us today for our very first episode.
Lucky you.
So this is fun and exciting and a whole lot of scary.
Definitely.
So this kind of all came about. Sharon and I had been camping, and I was just talking to her about witchcraft and like podcasts and stuff, and then we kind of toyed around with a few ideas and whatever, went on with our vacation, and like a week later she texted me and said, I think we should do this.
I thought it was a great idea. We have a good base that we can kind of branch off if we ever want to. Yeah, I'm excited to get started, and I'm also excited that this is for us because we're researching this stuff to kind of know ourselves a little bit better.
For sure.
And so the content interests me, and then, you know, being able to like document it, I think is important, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think for me too, it's like unlearning everything that I've ever known.
Yeah.
Right? Because originally we started off and we were like, okay, it's going to be about witchcraft.
Yeah.
But that's just, it's too narrow of a subject for us. And we need, so then when I'm looking at that, I'm like, oh, wait, but then there's this bigger level of paganism, and, you know, and I'm like, oh man, there's just so many different things that I never looked in because, you know, like many years ago when I was originally first looking into witchcraft and stuff, there wasn't that much information out there.
Yeah.
You know, there isn't this like plethora of social media and everything out there that provides like all these different, you know, aspects and information. So it's funny because I was just thinking there's two books that I'm reading right now, that Drawing Down the Moon. Yep, I started
Margot
that
Adler.
one too.
I love that book.
Really? Okay.
So that one is a 25th anniversary edition. And then I'm also reading Ray Buckland, who is America's first ever recognized witch.
Okay.
So I thought that was pretty cool. But it's called Complete Book of Witchcraft. That one is also a 25-year edition.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So really, it seems like there's a lot of 25th anniversary books.
Interesting.
I kind of wonder if that's maybe like a point where things kind of started to tip.
Well, that's probably about the time 25 years ago when I started looking into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's funny. You know, I didn't know that those books were out there and existed at that time.
Neither
there
did
was no internet.
Yeah.
Back then. So
it's not like they just had it in the school library
No,
or even
no,
the
no.
regular library.
No, you could not go to your school library and ask for those books. No way. And there wasn't even Amazon then either. So,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it was not an easy to locate book unless you knew what you were looking for.
Yeah.
And, you know.
So I think that the technology has really allowed people to explore things a little bit more, just because before having the internet and shit like that, you just had what was in your community.
Right.
And the people and the knowledge that they brought to the community, that's all you knew.
Right.
You know, so I didn't even know about some of the different pagan paths.
I didn't know about
I
any.
still don't know about a bunch of them.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like you said, you look into one thing and it's like, oh, but what is this? And what is this? And and then the list just keeps growing and growing and growing.
Well, you know, you had encouraged me to join like a pagan Facebook group that you had joined. And so I did. And there's so many things that they talk about in there that I'm like, what? Now I need to know about this too. And I was like, oh my gosh, like where do you start? Like, you know, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of information.
So I really think that looking into the idea of spirituality as a whole to start it was a really good idea. I'm glad that we kind of pivoted. I've always considered myself a spiritual person, but never really knew what that actually meant.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And like how it differed from religion.
And exactly the same for me. Like I always felt very spiritual, but I wasn't religious.
Right.
And I always thought it was weird to me that people worshipped one God when there's so many different gods.
Right.
So, so definitely like the spirituality aspect of it is, to me, the most important. That's something that I want to connect with more.
Right.
Yeah,
for sure. When I was looking into spirituality, I found a bunch of stuff on like the difference between spirituality and religion. And like basically what it seems to boil down to is like in a religion, you are kind of seeking, like you are born damned and you're seeking forgiveness to a God. The difference between that and spirituality is you're looking into it like, oh no, that's not what it is. How did it go?
I mean, it's confusing, right?
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Like I read something and then I read something else and I'm like, wait a minute, I feel like this maybe conflicts a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but there's just so much out there. I think I'm going to say this like 100 times over, but I mean.
Okay, so this is what it is. So,
okay.
In religion, it implies that we must beg for forgiveness for past and future sins.
Okay.
And then in spirituality, it's not about seeking forgiveness. It's about understanding and connecting with divine powers.
Right.
And a lot of time, and nature. And a lot of time, those divine powers aren't a deity. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is interesting. I know when we first started talking about this too, we kind of were looking at like, which do we identify as? We looked at a bunch, and I was like, well, I mean, some of them like, yeah, I agree with the things that they do or stand for, but I still don't identify that way.
Right.
Because for me, it's more of the spiritual side of it than the spell work side of it.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of why I shy away from like Wicca. I haven't really researched Wicca in depth yet, but it just seems like it's too structured for me. And it is a recognized religion.
It is, but I don't think anything is as structured as...
Oh, for sure not. Like Christianity or Catholicism.
Sure.
Yeah. But like there's certain things that you have to do in order to be considered. You have to attain certain certificates or degrees.
See, I didn't even look into it that much to know that you had to go that in depth to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's for me then.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm not like... I definitely want to look into it. It's not something that I'm saying like, no.
Sure. Yeah.
Never, I'm still interested in it. And
right.
Really, I think like the idea of spirituality is not about like trying to convert people. It's about trying to figure yourself out, figure out how the world works, how everything is interconnected. Is there a deeper meaning to life?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
Like stuff like that instead of... I'm a bad person and I need to beg God for my forgiveness.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, that's another thing that I hope that we touch on is like past lives. I just read a book, Many Lives, Many Masters.
Okay.
It's really, really good. And it makes you think about these people when they pass on aren't going to a heaven or a hell. They're just continue on into a different life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, I think you should read it. You should borrow it.
I should. Okay.
Because it's really good. And it really made me think very differently about afterlife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I think about reincarnation, I think about like the law of attraction, where energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. And for me, that is something powerful. So I feel like when we die, our spirit is energy. Our consciousness is energy. So that has to go somewhere. That may not go to a heaven or a hell, but I'm curious to know where it does go.
Right. Yeah, me too. And this book, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, you'll have to do it. Well, I'll lend it to you. I have it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
I bought it because I kept hearing about it, and I kept hearing about it just through other avenues of other things. Like I listened to another podcast and they talked about it quite a few times, and I just like jotted it down. I just, and then after we started talking about this, I was like, well, let me check out what that book was about. And then I was like, well, okay, I'm gonna read it. And I read it, and I'm like, wow, that makes me really think differently. And it actually almost comforts me when you think about when you lose someone.
Yeah.
Like, they're not really gone. They're just moving on to their next life.
They're just on to something different.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, for me, that's a really great way to think of it. I would rather think of that as happening.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And we're all like afraid of death. I mean, whether we want to admit it or not.
Terrified.
I'm horrified at getting old.
Yeah.
Oh, God, it's already happening, but I'm still horrified.
Oh, God. I feel like 30s is where it hits, honestly, because all of a sudden it's like my skin is different.
Yeah. Everything's different.
My body is different. It's awful.
The way you carry your weight is different.
Yeah.
It's awful.
In order to stay like at least halfway in shape, I have to work harder, which is bullshit.
But, for me, like, as I get older, I think it makes me feel better about the aging process to know that maybe I could just be getting ready to go on to my next life.
Yeah.
So I just need to absorb knowledge to bring to that next life.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we should do an episode just about that book, because it's so good and it leaves me with a lot of questions, and I want to explore more, but I know once again that'll get me on a rabbit hole of something else.
Right.
And I'm, I think as we develop this, I'm struggling where to focus because I'm finding so many things that I find fascinating.
Yeah.
That I'm like, whoa, where do I go now? Like, I really like this, but then this is...
So I think, honestly, don't focus on anything.
Yeah.
Well, like, I don't. I'll tell you right now, I don't. Well, I bounce. I mean, you do bounce around. I have things that, like, I have looked more into, like, Druidism. I started doing a course on, I think it's the druidnetwork.org. So there's a course on there called Shaping the Wheel, and it's like a year-long course just for like beginners, people wanting to know about Druidism, and it's rooted in like Celtic mythology and stuff, and which is probably why I'm drawn to it, honestly. Right. But so I actually bought like a separate notebook just to study that, because that is going to be one of my areas of focus, at least right now. But I have a bunch of notebooks like this. That's just, I have, a little bit of tarot, a little bit of God and Goddess research, a lot of different like spells and just things that I see that I'm like, I like that. And I want to put it in my book.
Yes. And there's so many things for me where I'm like, I like that. I already am familiar with this. I already use this in my daily life. Mm-hmm. But is that my niche?
Right.
Yeah. Probably not. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely not. But for me, in order to find that, you have to look at everything.
Right.
And so that's
Which
why
is a lot.
So that's why I just roll with it. If I find something interesting, like I have a little Post-it note by my desk, because I'll listen to books and stuff while I'm working, and then I'll hear a part or a term or something that just catches my attention, so I just jot it down.
Yep.
And then I put it in here in my research novel.
Yeah. That's how I end up reading other articles. Like if I'm reading a book and they'll note something else, I'm like, oh, I should go into that and check that out. Like,
that's literally how I found the Drawing Down the Moon book and the Ray Buckland book. Like everything that I have researched since we went camping is because I just spiraled in so many different directions.
Oh, we're out of control.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's okay. We're allowed to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know. I mean, I think finding an area to focus on just takes time,
Yeah, and, I read a lot of, like, the questions and comments in that pagan Facebook group. And you'll see a lot of people like asking, like, how do I know which god or goddess? And everybody says, like, it'll come to you. You'll know when it comes to you.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't just happen overnight. And I was like, oh, man, you have to be patient. You have to learn.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can really realistically read about every single one of them and see which one identifies with you most. And that can be your god or goddess that you worship. But all these people that are like, oh, she came to me in a dream and did this. I was like, well, I really hope that happens for me. Like, that would be super cool, right?
It would be, definitely.
I hope I have that
That's
kind of
something
an
that
experience.
I really like about paganism is nobody is trying to force their gods and goddesses on you. No one's trying to force their beliefs on you.
Right.
They're very much like it's a personal path.
Yeah.
And it's not one that happens overnight. It'll come to you, you know?
You know, and something else that I find really fascinating is like, say someone posts something about like, you know, I've been having some bad luck at work. Can anyone recommend like a spell? And 50 people will comment and they'll each have a different variation of a spell.
Yeah.
Because it's not rigid. It's not a recipe book.
Yeah.
It's for whatever works for you. And that's what they always say, like, oh, this works for me when I do this, or I do this, but I only do it on a full moon. And I was like, oh. So that, for me too, like spell work is something I'm less interested in.
Yeah.
Only because I believe in the power of it. And I probably would be afraid that I would do something wrong.
Yeah, see, and I'm completely opposite. I am the person who tries something and then I have a book of shadows and I write my own spells in it because I pull pieces from things that work for me, especially for like, there's people in different regions. You don't have certain herbs and stuff like that. So I will pull what works for me and write my own spell work. And then I do it. And then I go back and write whether or not I think it worked, how well I think it worked, like stuff like that.
Okay.
You know, and then maybe next time I do that spell, I do something different and then see how it worked that time and compare the two.
Right.
Which I haven't gotten that far.
Well, your
yet,
intent has a lot to do with it.
And really that's...
And your state of mind as you're doing it.
Yes. Yeah. That's for me, I think, what is like the most powerful is what you put
your
behind.
Intention?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
What you put behind your actions. The one thing that I did, like, there was a situation that I encountered with a friend. And...
Like a recent?
Yes.
Okay.
And she kind of got involved with an ex who was awful.
Oh, God. Haven't we all done something
mentally
stupid
and physically
like that? Yeah. Oh, no.
So a group of us were like, well, maybe we should do like a cord cutting spell. And I thought about it and I looked into it and I researched it. And then I was like, you know, I'm not comfortable severing bonds between two other people without their consent.
Right.
I feel like that's bad karma. So I didn't do it.
Right.
Instead, I did like a protection spell just for her.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that my intent is to protect her behind both of them, but you know, I just felt like that was the wrong way to go about it.
Right, and that was really smart of you to be that aware that maybe
and
you
I
shouldn't.
just really thought, like, how would I feel if someone did that to me? You know, I would feel completely violated. So I don't want to do that to anybody else. You know.
So do you think it's worked?
No.
Oh. That sucks.
No. Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right.
Well, I guess maybe if you want to look at it in the sense that she's safe, alive, but not free of him. To me, that's what would be it working. But
is she at least aware of how bad it is? Or
oh yeah,
okay,
she fully knows.
Oh well, I hope that she is safe.
Yeah, me too. She's an adult.
Yeah.
You can only do so
and
much
that's the toughest thing is like, you know, you can't convince anyone to do anything that they don't want to do.
Exactly.
You know,
but you can be honest with them when you think they're lying to themselves. And that's all we can do.
Right. That is so true. Mm-hmm. So for spell work, like I don't really do it only because I just don't feel like I know enough about it yet. And I don't want to like summon a demon.
You would have to work pretty hard, I think, to summon a demon.
But I feel like with my luck, all of a sudden it would happen and be like, oh no, you used rosemary instead of sage. What were you thinking? That's like a fear.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, yeah, I'd rather not.
Yeah. No, but also I think that everybody's idea of what is spell work and witchcraft is different. You know, for me, I put my intent into making candles. Mm-hmm. That to me is spell work. You know,
all right.
Like just crafting it with my hand as I'm pouring my intent into it is spell work.
All right.
For me, meditation is a path to spell work because meditation makes me feel very, very connected with the world, like nature, the earth, and even just like people. It makes me, I think, more self-aware.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So like that, I consider part of my spell work, but a lot of people don't.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, but that's okay because everybody's path is different. Mm-hmm. And, you know, everything is not the same as we know. Like everything can be tweaked to how you want it to affect you or rep you.
Exactly.
You know, it's not like the rigidness of a religion, you know, like you have to do it this way or
your soul is damned.
Or your soul is damned.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such an awful, God, religion and cults. God, every religion I think is a cult, really.
I do too. I really do. But what scares me is about I won't even say like, not even like all of Christianity or all Catholics or anything like that. But I think that there are specific churches and priests and predatory people in positions of power in churches that it scares me about everybody's intent is powerful when it comes to magic. So it scares me to think about, okay, let me use Donald Trump as an example.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm more scared of his following because they are a cult. His words have power. Mm-hmm. They've created this, to me, monster. No, I said I wasn't going to get all political, but but for real, I mean, so that to me that's what scares me most about magic is that I know that if there's power and intent in my beliefs, then there's power in that too, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it almost feels like you have to like combat it a little bit. This fucking country. I love it.
Yeah, love it. But
some people are real fucking dumb.
yeah. Well, and
or just cruel. Yeah, you know, and whatever.
I know, and you know, too, something else with like your standard Christian religions. So I did not grow up religious at all. Mm-hmm. So even exploring in this pagan path, it really is a lot for me because I have no knowledge of the Bible. I mean, I know stuff just because I know stuff from like movies or television or books.
Yeah.
Or, you know, not because I did Bible study or anything like that.
I did very minimal Bible study when I was forced to go to church. Other than that, no. That is one thing where I'm like, I do at some point in this path have to sit down and read the Bible.
I mean, so do you have to?
I don't know. I feel like in order to understand other paths.
Okay,
yeah,
sure, yeah.
You know, because I have a hard time connecting with Christians. I really do. And not all of them, but some people are not able to get past the fact that I am not religious.
That is exactly why I started to bring this up. It's like, because I'm not religious, a large percentage of the people that I have been exposed to that are very verbal about their religion and how you should be following their religion.
Yeah.
You know, pagan people don't do that.
Not at all.
You know, they're not screaming at you to be a pagan.
Yeah.
So it's funny to me that these, you know, God-fearing people are so aggressive and are trying to think how to say it.
It's because
like
they want you to convert you.
Yes.
Because that's what the Bible tells them to do. Mm-hmm. It says that you have to go out and find God's subjects.
Why can't you just be happy with what what other people are doing. As long as they're not hurting other people or animals, who cares?
That's exactly the way
let
that I
them
wish
live
everybody
their life.
lived their life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, not my fucking business.
But not, like, I mean, I have some pretty religious friends that I probably will never talk to them about this podcast or this journey that we're on.
Right.
Because they are so verbal in their beliefs, but that's your belief.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't make me a bad person.
Right.
I feel like it makes you a bad person for continually trying to change my mind or make me be someone that I don't want to be.
So think about this too. Like, when Christianity was first becoming popular, they built their churches on top of places that pagans already went to worship.
Oh, yeah.
And they did that because they thought if they had nowhere else to go, they would have to come and believe in God. But from what I hear, they had pagans that were actually building the churches.
Right.
The people who lived there. So they put a lot of them have pagan symbols and little things.
I've heard that. I've read that.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck
I'd
you.
be curious if there's like a roadmap, like visit this church and you'll see in the bottom pew. Like,
Man, I'll bet you there is.
I mean, I think now there might be, but that would be kind of cool.
That would be cool,
historically to go look at them. Because honestly, churches, what they stand for is blah, but they're beautiful.
They are beautiful.
Their architecture, the stonework, I mean, they're beautiful. The stained glass.
artistry, yeah.
Someone get on that. Like, if that does not exist already, I would do that.
Right.
I'd be like, a little road trip. We're going to go check out some beautiful churches.
Right.
And,
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be super fun.
I would enjoy that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, like, it is about the spirituality side of it because I have never connected with that one God.
Yeah.
And I've never really connected with those people that are just screaming down your throat that their religion is the religion.
Right. Especially because they have taken so many pagan aspects, create their religion, and just tried to stomp everything else out.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the history of Europe, they just decimated entire peoples. The Romans destroyed the Gaelic people, completely eradicated them. Like, that shit is crazy.
I know. I have a book jotted down about that I want to research and read into.
Yeah, and like, I'm super interested in like Roman cultures and stuff just because it's so alien, But it's also really like sad to like research all this stuff, and when you put all of the pieces together, it creates Christianity stomping everything out that anybody else believes.
Yeah,
doing
absolutely.
everything in their power to do so. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it maybe is happening still now a little bit. It's just the techniques have changed.
Absolutely.
So
I think money has changed.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Tax exempt, baby.
Mm-hmm. Oh, gosh. That could be another episode.
I know.
Dang it. Sharon. Yeah, but too, like when I was in my early 20s, I was really, really looking for something like a religion that I could connect to, and I couldn't. Like I did a lot of research. I talked to a lot of people that I already knew were religious, and I really it's like a bad experience. Like I really came across people that were super religious that tended to be really shitty people. Mm-hmm. And that really left me a bad taste in my mouth. And I'm like, oh, so you are really not a good person, but you fall back on this. You love Jesus. Mm-hmm. So that makes you a good person. Like that's not what I'm looking for. Yeah. And I felt like that is where I kept getting led is by people that were awful people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's not good people. There is so many good people out there that believe in God. And there's many of my friends that I love very much that do.
Yeah. A lot of my family, my husband's grandma is very Catholic, but she still loves me. You know? But we don't talk about that stuff.
Yeah, and
and
that's just a matter of respect. It really is.
Definitely.
And I know some people's point of view would be like to be, well, if she doesn't accept me for who I am, come on.
Yeah,
she's
exactly.
an old woman. Like, if she loves you, who gives a shit?
So there was, speaking of that pagan group, there was a post in there about how do you guys fit your pagan beliefs into like Christmas with your families and stuff like that, and like Christian gatherings and stuff. And my response was like the same way that I do anything when I go to someone else's house is like, I'm just happy that you're allowing me to be a part of your celebration. I don't have to believe in Jesus Christ to come to Christmas,
Oh, for sure.
But it's not like I'm saying that their way is wrong. They are allowed to believe that, and I don't love them any less for it. And I said too, like I did that for Samhain. I did my first ritual blessing, and lots of people participated in that. Lots of people came and asked questions about it. People who were Christians actually, like, I had like write out on a scroll, like, here's some questions to like consider for the year, your goals and aspirations and stuff. Write it on the scroll, put it on my altar, and then like I'll keep it on there for however many days, and then I'll burn it. And people who are Christians participated. Yeah. I don't have a problem with anybody else's religion. It's just when their religion makes them think differently about me.
Yes. And, I think when it comes to Christmas, when you have children, you think of it differently too.
Yeah.
Whether I full-fledged become pagan or, whatever happens on this path for me, I am never not going to put up my Christmas tree with my Disney ornaments on it.
100%. I have 2 Christmas trees, but that is a pagan tradition.
Right.
Is the thing.
And that too is like the spirit of Christmas. And, so I don't see that as like a Jesus or a God thing.
No, neither do I.
It's just the celebration of really a holiday that has become commercialized.
Yeah.
Yeah. But nothing in my practices is going to make me ever not put up my Christmas tree.
Exactly.
And like I'm going to listen to normal Christmas music.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like that's something from my past. It's something that we're all like aware of. It doesn't mean you can't listen to it.
I don't believe in every song, like everything that people say in the music that we listen to in everyday life. So it's not like a clear line. Like I'm going to be pagan, so now I'm only going to listen to pagan music. Ew, I can't listen to Silent Night anymore.
Right?
Like, fuck that. That's one of my favorite Christmas songs.
I'm not going to listen to Rage Against the Machine anymore either. Like, no, that's not happening.
Right.
But it's silly to me, like to be that extreme.
Right.
Like, believe what you want to believe. That's great. But that's another great thing about that Facebook group is nothing has to be structured. And when someone asks a question like that, everyone's like, do whatever you feel comfortable with. Yep. That's exactly what everyone says. Yeah. Like, I offer up information like, I do this and I do that. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and especially because a lot of like pagan paths are completely, like, any kind of traditions or history is completely washed away. So now with the different technology and like the vast reach that we have to communicate with, people are having to kind of piece things together,
right?
And that's how there does become so many new paths now. There's so many new paths these days because you meet new people with new ideas and you're like, oh, I really like that, or oh, that's not for me, and that's fucking fine. And we
wouldn't have all that knowledge too if there wasn't the internet and social media. Like in my feeds, like I see things like witches that post like a daily affirmation or something like that. I would have never seen something like this years ago.
Yeah.
Like, so it's more mainstream.
Definitely.
So I think easier to access the knowledge of it, and
Yeah.
it's easier to talk about it, and it's easier to accumulate information now.
Definitely.
You know? Back when I was a kid, we used to tie a note around a dinosaur's neck.
Oh, God. All right, Grandma. Oh, jeez. Yeah. So, I don't know. I kind of feel like the way that, like, if we look at spirituality, paganism, and witchcraft, like, spirituality is kind of like a personal journey.
Yes.
I think that paganism is kind of like a broad term to encompass anything that's not structured religion.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. And then, like, witchcraft, I think, witchcraft and magic. Like, I feel like that's more just a practice of different pagan paths.
Right.
Like, it's not a witch. A witch can be anything, can be from any path. You could be a druid, you could be Wiccan, you could be like Norse.
There's a green witch.
Oh yeah, like the green path. So there's actually, it's like the green craft, which I never knew before today. Mm-hmm. I just heard that in that Margot Adler book.
Okay.
Like and I think that might be relatively new, like the formation of an actual like green path.
Yeah.
Or green craft, it's called.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's just a tool that pagans use. They draw from different energies. Sometimes it's a deity, sometimes it's soil,
Right.
Sometimes it's grew up and you have traditions that were passed down from your family that you do, and I think they're all good.
I agree.
They're all super interesting.
They are very interesting. They're very, very, very interesting. Yeah.
Oh, something else too that I kind of find like exciting is, the way that people used to think about the way the world worked in the past, thousands of years ago. Mm-hmm. It was much different because of how science and technology has changed our lives. We've disproven things that, they used to think that the sun was a god. It's a planet,
Right.
But just stuff like that. We know more about the world. And so I think even if a lot of those pagan paths that were kind of almost stomped out had survived, they'd still have changed over the years. You should.
Yeah, you should ever be changing.
It's progression and growth and understanding and,
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Like, what else we got?
I have just a little thing on like a couple different belief systems of pagans.
I mean, if you want to talk about them?
Yeah, do you want to hear them?
Sure.
All right, I'll tell
Okay.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the first one is polytheism.
Okay.
Which is relating the divine god and goddess as individual people and deities. Oh, no. That's wrong. It's...
Listen, lady.
Right. Hold on. Polytheism is relating to gods and goddesses as individual beings, but also understanding that they're greater than the representations that we as humans have made for them.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
We could call it Hecate or Thor, but in reality, we have no actual idea what that power is. That's just a way that we have chosen to represent it. I think that's a pretty cool, idea. Mm-hmm. And then another one is pantheism, which is the belief that the deity and the universe are one. I kind of like that one, too. Like, the gods are not viewed as separate individuals, but different aspects of one divine force.
That's, something I have been looking more at.
Yeah.
Is that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that one. Mm-hmm. And then there's animism, which is gods are not described as human characters, but everything in nature is considered a spirit or some form of energy. And then the wheel of the year and the cycles of life are considered divine in their own right. Which I also kind of agree with, to an extent. But that also kind of, to me, is pantheism, because all part of one divine force. So to me, those are the same thing. And then monotheism, which is the belief in one God. It's very rare, but not impossible for a pagan to think that. There are Christian witches and shit, which I find interesting.
I find that interesting, too, because I think there's some in that group that we're in.
Yeah.
Because I'll read the response and I'll be like, wait.
But if you think about it, it's interesting. At first, I didn't understand it, but part of the pagan path is taking different elements of things and creating what works for you.
Right.
So if you believe, the Christianity does not have a poor belief system by any means, They want you to be a good person.
Right.
But it's just, it gets lost in the way that they try to go out and spread the word. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes, it gets lost.
And I think part of it is because it's, to me at least, Christianity is a way that you have to do this. You are already a bad person.
Right.
You have to spend your life proving that you're good enough. And so that's why you have to go out and bring more people into the faith.
Right.
I don't like
That's
that.
a cult.
That's a cult.
That is a cult. You know what? Speaking of cults, I'm afraid that I might get involved in a cult one day. As much as I'm very aware of what they are. I've probably watched every documentary on every known cult.
Yeah.
But because I am on that search for something bigger and better, I could see that I would probably get wrapped up in one.
I won't let you.
Please have an intervention for me.
I will not let you get wrapped
let's create
into
a safe word. I think about that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I would be that person where everyone would be like, well, Heather was really normal and she was smart and she was a good friend and then something happened,
Now I haven't talked to her in a year.
Yeah. And she only wears beige.
God, you get involved in that dancing TikTok cult.
I just saw that. Yeah. I was like, what? I just saw that and I thought to myself, how can there still be cults out there?
I know.
How can this still be happening? You know how it's happening? Because they're using religion and they're using faith and they're using spirituality against people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's all the wrong reasons.
Yes, especially because most of the time when you have a cult leader, they're preying on the weak.
Yeah.
And they're preying on the desperate and the hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
And they're feeding them lines of bullshit to line whatever they want, whether it's money or sex or just control.
Yeah, when a leader of a cult is having private sessions with you, it's because they're trying to manipulate you.
Yeah.
You always see these things on cults where it really like an architect and a lawyer, but they were looking for something. They were looking for a connection. They thought they were going to, a lot of the ones that created in the 70s and stuff is like, this peace and love. They were hoping to make a better future.
Yeah.
That's what they went into it, thinking they were going to live off the land. They were going to make their own foods and their own clothes. And it was going to be this beautiful, happy, harmony religion. And then it's too late. They're in a cult. Mm-hmm. And now they're doing illegal
Next
stuff.
thing you know, you're drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Drinking the Kool-Aid.
That was a devastating point in
Jonestown.
Yeah,
that was awful. So I don't want to be in a cult.
Yeah.
But I really am needing something spiritually. I need that connection. I need to know what's really out there.
Yeah.
And, I need to know. I want to find out.
And for me, this has been already super helpful for not just my personal life, but also my book, because starting to look into different things, I'm able to find fact from fiction. And it's also really interesting to me the differences between researching real magic and paganism and fantasy.
Yes.
It's definitely cool. And I'm able to find ways to incorporate the real stuff into my book. So that's super cool.
Right. Yeah,
that
is very cool. But yeah, that's something too that I think about a lot, because there is a big difference between the fantasy and the real part of it. Mm-hmm. And there needs to be that separation.
Right.
I
have no ideas of grandeur that I'm going to one day be like Gandalf.
Right.
Would be fucking cool if I could.
Very, very, very cool.
If I had to pick a wizard.
Yes. That's never going to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there may be some people out there that really do think that. But I don't think that way, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, so I did find a couple of really interesting things about witchcraft when I was researching, and I wanted to tell you about them.
Okay.
Okay, so there was a group of women in the 60s, and they were like some kind of like a civil rights group.
Okay.
Right? So they were called WITCH, which stands for Women's International Terrorist Conspiracy from Hell.
Wow, that's a pretty bold acronym.
Yes, or it's also sometimes called Women Inspired to Tell Their Collective History.
Okay.
Which I like that better.
I like that a little better, too.
But different times in the 60s, especially for women, man.
Hell yeah.
But they're a group of anti-war feminists, and they were not practicing Wiccans, but they did perform more of an anti-war theater, like kind of depicting witches.
Oh.
And the group publicly put a hex on President Nixon.
Really?
Yeah, after the invasion of Cambodia.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which I never heard that, but I thought
I've never
was
heard that.
super cool.
Yeah.
And then I also found out that more recently, a group of actually practicing witches were trying to put a binding spell on Donald Trump to reduce his poor behavior.
I mean, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, and then in return, some of his like more of evangelist followers attempted to spiritually stop the witches.
Wow. That's
I never heard any of that.
like a royal battle.
Yeah, and that's our political climate, you guys.
Yeah.
So
that's wild.
I never knew that, but I thought it was so interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah. That's funny. That's very fun.
Yeah. Is it maybe about time to wrap this one up?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed our conversation. There's a lot more to come. We have a bunch of different lists of a bunch of different kinds of topics that we want to cover. We definitely want to have some special guests.
Yes, that would be so great.
So we hope that you hang in with us so that we can do some witchy shit.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be fun. And certainly email us at hexhavenpodcast@gmail.com if you have any suggestions. We would appreciate that.
Definitely. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next time.
See ya. Thanks
Bye.
for listening. Bye. We'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our friend Jason from K-Town Connects for his invaluable guidance and support. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Jason.